the whole thing is, I think, revolving around the risk. So let's talk about the risk for a moment, and then we will go on with the paper. So what is a risk? Last time we discussed on our demonstration lesson also, what is a risk? Risk is basically, you know, in a negative sense, we choose a particular action, or we choose a particular strategy, and finally we will end up with some undesirable outcome. That's what we normally call a risk. We decide on a particular strategy. It can be in our business life, it can be in our personal life, whatever it may be. We decide on a particular strategy, but we end up with undesirable result, and that is what we normally call a negative risk. So that's what normally what we find it out. So let's talk about the risk scenario altogether. So I'm starting with the slides now, and I'm recording this lesson so I can send it to you later on.
Okay.
Right. So first of all, as I said, yes, risk, we know what it is. So the future events or results may not be as expected. It could be in business, it could be in a non-governmental, a non-profit organization, it could be in a government organization, wherever the chosen action may end up with undesirable outcomes. Now let's talk about some of those things what we see, Majed, in normal life. What are the possible risks that you have come across in your business, wherever you work?
Redundancies.
Yeah, redundancy. Yes, redundancy come how? Redundancy come because your costs have increased, isn't it? Right?
Yep.
Your costs have increased, and the organization is now thinking of, you know, reducing the staff or whatever it may be. Maybe a fall in revenue, right? You plan for a particular kind of a revenue, but you see it's not going to happen now for whatever the reason, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that you have lost some customers, right? They were buying from you all this time, but they have shifted to a competitor. So that is a risk for you. Maybe, you know, some litigation, right? Some customer has filed action against you, some supplier has filed action against you, some employee has filed action against you, a kind of a litigation. So things that can go wrong, and that is what we call risk, basically. So I have put it up here. The future events or results may not be as expected. So when I say results may not be as expected, it could be the results may be better than what I expect, or results may be worse than what I expect. So earlier all this time I was talking about what we call the negative risk, where the results could be worse than what I expect. So it is going to damage the organization. And that risk, surely, you and I want to minimize it. And that is not about the risk management. But that's not all. We have something called upside risk. The things can be much better than what we have planned for it. We can work out for better. We can do better than what we can expect. So that is what we call a upside risk. So whenever we talk in P3, the risk, it can be a negative risk, it can be upside risk. Negative risks are sometimes called pure risk. So why I'm putting up all these things is because the examiner, with the short questions, he can ask anything. So the negative risk is something what we call pure risk. Then we have a two.
Did you say
pure, P-U-R-E.
Sorry, did you say okay.
P-U-R-E, pure risk. Because normally when we talk about risk, we think of the pure risk. Can you think of a particular pure risk that we come across? I mean, then nothing good can come out of it. In your business world, and nothing good can come out of it. If that happens, there's nothing simply good can come out of it. So, can you think of
just government policies?
Yeah, government policies also, in a way, sometimes we may be able to exploit it and do something. Look at something like a customer failure, a bad debt.
Yeah.
Your customer going bankrupt. That's surely a pure 100% bad risk. Nothing good can come out of it, customer going bankrupt. A fire in your premises, a fire in your warehouse. Surely nothing good can come out of it. So these are what we call the pure risk. Can you think of upside risk? Upside risk.
Exchange rate risk.
Yes, yeah, that's a good one. Yes, upside risk, that's a very good one. You may think that the currency is going to be so much, but it may move in your favor and it can end up with upside risk. Maybe that you launch a new product and you expect the sales to be 100,000 units, but it is so popular, it goes up to 150,000 units. Upside risk. Now, when you have that kind of a thing, what will you do? You want to exploit that opportunity. So, in the strategic case study, you might find it. Earlier in the Topsima, we found, suddenly you will find that the demand has gone up and you want to exploit that opportunity. You are not going to say, we can only produce 100,000 and we are going to stop it there. No. How are you going to exploit it? You may want to see whether you can increase your manufacturing capacity. If you are buying it from outside, whether you can get the supplies. You want to exploit those opportunities that is there. And that is what we call upside. Then we have what we call a speculative risk. It's a two-way risk. Certain things when we do, it could be better than what we expect. It could be worse than what we expect. So, we never know. A launch of a product is a good example. It could be better than what we expect. It could be worse than what we expect. On the F3, you can come out with a share issue. It may be the people buying the shares may be much more than what we expected, or maybe very little than what we expected. So that is what we call a speculative risk. And in business, we do have all these things. Speculative risk. So these are the type of risks that we will find in the business world. The two kinds of risks that we will probably have it. So let's look at that one. So then the next one. Now there is something called a risk and something called uncertainty. What is a risk? What is an uncertainty? Normally when we talk about a risk, we say it is something quantifiable, something we can calculate. We say that we can take a calculated risk. That is what we call a risk normally. But what is uncertainty? So risk is all something.
Uncertainty is something that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something you can't actually quantify, and there's no specific measure for it.
Exactly. Because in a risk situation, you know the possible outcome. You know your sales are going to happen, but what you don't know is whether it is going to be 100,000 or whether it is going to be 50,000. That is what the risk is. You know the possible outcomes and the chances that it will happen, but what we don't know is the actual outcome. That is what we have sometimes, what we call the expected value. That's a 50% chance the sales will be 100,000, 30% chance the sales will be 150,000. So we can calculate it and we can probably know, but we don't know the actual outcome. But on the other hand, what is uncertainty? Uncertainty is we don't know anything about it. We don't know what the outcome is, whether it is going to be 100, 50, 20, 30, we have absolutely no clue about it. So that is what uncertainty is. So why we have uncertainty in businesses? Can the business run with uncertainty first of all?
No.
No. Why? Because the uncertainty is not really, it's like you drive in a vehicle without knowing your destination. Right? So it's uncertainty. So how come the uncertainty comes? What is the reason for uncertainty? Uncertainty comes, you remember we discussed last time in the demonstration, the information. When you don't have information and if you try to do something, there is always uncertainty. The next one is knowledge. If you try to do things without having a knowledge, that is also uncertainty. So you and I start a business today without having proper information about the market, without knowing what the competitor is going to do, and we don't know what the product is, and if we try to do that kind of a thing, surely we are in uncertainty. And that we have to completely knock it off. How do we do that one? By obtaining information and knowledge before making any decision. So in businesses, we should never go for uncertainty. get all the information, get the knowledge before making any decisions. Now, the next question is risk. Why we should take risk? What for? What for? What is a risk? Risk is you are trying to do something different, isn't it? If you are doing the same old thing, there is absolutely no risk, or rather hardly a risk, I would say. But when you want to do something different, only a risk comes up, right? Why are we doing certain things? Why do you want to take a risk and do something different?
Because it could potentially be more profitable.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that is basically why we take risk is, number one, to get that competitive advantage. You try to do different something from what your competitor is doing. And that's how a lot of products are coming into the market. A lot of new markets are developing because people are trying to do something new, different. Obviously, when you try to do something new, something different, there is always a chance the things may not be as what we planned. But we do it because to get that competitive advantage. Once you get a competitive advantage, what is the consequence of it? You get increased financial scale. Yeah. Yes. With all that, what are you going to get? You get your increased financial returns, isn't it? You introduce a new product to the market.
Yeah.
And that product becomes more popular. Look at what the mobile telephones did, right? They introduced something totally different. Look at the computers. Look at all these motor cars that are coming up, hybrid and nitrogen and all that kind of model. They're taking a particular risk and then they get a competitive advantage. If you don't take risk, what happens? You will not have the competitive advantage and also you will not have financial returns increasing. So that is if you are not taking a risk, that is what is going to happen, and that strategy we call, you can note it down, it is called the follow the leader strategy. Follow the leader strategy. The follow the leader strategy. So we are not doing anything new, we are just following the leader. Follow the leader strategy, which is not really good in today's business world. You try to follow. So you get some businesses doing this one. You know, what your grandfather did, you are trying to do it today. So you are not making any headway. You are doing the same old thing. So that kind of business is also there. Who will do this kind of business without taking risk? Who will do? So you get these two kinds of people, Majed. Risk takers and risk averse people. So, if you are totally risk averse, you are not going to take any risk, you will be doing the follow the leader strategy. So, you are not going to do anything new, you are not going to make any innovations, you just follow what the others are doing. So, you are not going to get that much of a competitive advantage, you are just there doing the same thing. So, obviously, you are not going to have that growth coming up. Yeah?
Yeah.
So, the benefits of taking risk is surely, I have put it on a little bit of a kind of a map, benefits of taking risk. Now, when we talk about the risk, whatever the activities we do, it could end up with a low risk, it could end up with a high risk. There are certain activities what we do which will end up with a low risk. There are certain activities which we do high risk. Then, why we take a risk is, you told me just now, we learned it, to get that competitive advantage. The competitive advantage could be low, competitive advantage could be high. Right? Competitive advantage could be high, competitive advantage could be low. So, generally, we always prefer to do low risk activity. Low risk activity, high competitive advantage. Now, that is the kind of opportunity you would like to explore. Right? Very low risk, but high competitive advantage. Surely you and I like to explore that one. What about the low risk, low competitive advantage? Little risk, but little competitive advantage also. What will you do? Low risk, low competitive. I mean, this is normally what we see in a day-to-day thing. So, harmless, isn't it? Harmless. Because you don't have big competitive advantages and neither big risk. So it's just, they are the best, basically the routine transactions every day. You go on doing the same sales to the same customers, same product. That is what we call a low risk, low competitive advantage. But if you want to get that high competitive advantage and low activity, low risk, go and explore those opportunities. This is what the research and development and all the people will be doing. Then the next thing is high risk, high competitive advantage. High risk, high competitive advantage. Now that is not an area which you are going to drop it off, but you are not going to jump at it also. You will examine it very carefully and see whether it is worthwhile. So this is where we do our net present value appraisals and all that. It's high risk, high competitive advantage. I don't want to say no, neither I want to say yes. So I want to examine it more carefully. Do the NPVs, do the paybacks, do the internal rate of returns. This is what we call the neutral case. What about the next one? If you are in business, high risk, low competitive advantage. What will you do? Very high risk, hardly any competitive advantage. This area. What will you do? You want to go into business, very high risk, but nothing much of a big advantage.
No.
You probably will want to avoid it.
You wouldn't go for it. You'd avoid it.
Yeah, you are not going to go for it. That is why this is something what we call a risk map. This is the benefit of taking risk, right? So benefit of taking risk. So there are low risk, high activities which you can identify and explore. But high risk activities you want to avoid it. But high risk, high competitive advantage, you will examine it and go on with it. So this is what the advantage of taking risk in the business. If you don't take risk, you are not going to have that kind of a thing. Then now important thing is the categories of risk. Now this is basically because you know in business world you and I will find many risks coming up. But we need to categorize these risks. What for? Now earlier we discussed some of the risks like bad debts, like what else? Bad debts, computer failure, poor employees, frauds. There can be many kinds of risks. Foreign exchange risk, a fire happening. But all of these risks, we have to categorize it. Why are we categorizing these risks? Because if we categorize the risk, we can handle the risk. Because otherwise, now you are expert on the foreign exchange risk, right? So we can say, hey, Majed, you better handle that risk. I'm good on IT. So by categorizing the risk, they can tell Kumar, you handle the IT risk. Otherwise, if all of us try to handle every risk, it's going to be a bigger risk. So the types of risk that we find in the business world, you can categorize it under political, legal, and regulatory. What is a political risk, Majed? What's a political risk? Political risk is that yes.
Yeah, political risk would be things like government policies.
Yeah, the government policies can change with the change of a government, right? Now, tomorrow or day after tomorrow, we are having elections to elect the president of the country. It's almost a 50-50 battle with the two candidates coming with two different policy frameworks. So, whoever who comes up, whoever who has supported the other side and had the other views probably will be facing a big risk in business. And last 3 months, we saw a very dull business environment because people did not want to invest. People are waiting till day after tomorrow to see the results and see who is going to win the election. And that's the way that you try to mitigate the risk because you are not going to jump over and take a chance unless you are 100% sure this candidate is going to win. Legal risk. When you are in business, we find legal risk all the time. Your employees can file action, suppliers can file action, customers can file action, government can file action all the time. What is regulatory risk? What is regulatory risk?
So it's basically like the governing boards. So like over here you have the stock exchange.
You have the stock exchange, that's correct, yes?
Yeah.
Now they regulate the company, so you have to fall in line with the regulation, otherwise you will be subject to fines and suspension of license and all that. Look at in UK, it is the water regulator. So like that, there are many regulatory things, so if you don't comply with all those things, you can end up with lot of risk. Business risk. Business risk is a very, very common general thing. Whenever we are in business, we do have what we call a business risk. It can come up in different ways, right? Our targets may be different. Our customer may not want our products, and that can be a business risk. Economic risk. What is economic risk? Economic risk is something coming from the external environment, like inflation, exchange rates, interest rates, recession. You remember 2007, 2008 recession period? That was a kind of a risk the business had to face it. Financial risk. What is financial risk? Financial risk is whenever you are in business, we have the financial risk. The people may not pay you on time, your customers. If they don't pay you on time, what happens to you?
You won't be able to pay your own bills.
Yeah, because you will get into a liquidity crisis, isn't it? Because you are not able to make your payments and you will get into a liquidity crisis. So that is what we call a financial risk. And it can happen in different ways. It can be even your interest rate risk. So many things can happen as financial risk. Later on we'll be looking at. And nowadays one of the biggest risks we face is the technology risk. Technology is changing so fast. Unless you keep pace with it, you are in real crisis. Look at your SEMA exams, right? The way that it had changed. 20 years back, when I sat for the exam, it was basically, we were not able to take even the calculator to the exam center. We had to do all our mental calculations without even a calculator. Later on, they allowed the calculator to be taken in. But today, all the exams are on the computer. See how the technology has changed the whole structure of the exams and everything. So unless you keep pace with all these things, you are facing risk. Look at what happened to the Motorola telephones. They came out with the technology called analog technology. And they introduced the Motorola phones and they were the pioneers. But Nokia came from nowhere and they introduced a technology called digital technology. And they offered a small phone. And what happened? The Motorola went out of market. Technology, right? Look at all these, what we had earlier, the film rolls. Where are they now? Those film rolls. Those days before we think of going on a trip, first thing what we do is to take a film roll and go. Load it to the camera. But where are they? What has happened to them? All that is the technology has changed it. What about the big computers that we had earlier? The mainframes and the mini computers and all that. What happened? All those things are gone now. Right? So, technology. Look at the way that you are buying things. We are buying things. We are buying mostly online. The departmental stores are getting shut down. No, people are not going into those places. There is no parking. People don't want to go and waste their time. They want to go and click and buy online. So, the technology has changed the entire structure. So, the pilot study, case study what they are given at the moment for the strategic case study is about a departmental store. There were traditional departmental stores where the people had to come and buy the things. But they did not respond to the changes. And what happened? Others came and overtook them. And they went almost bankrupt. Because today, I don't think any company can do business without a website. Look at companies like Majed and eBay, what they do. They do everything here on the website. Look at little children. I was surprised. My granddaughter, she's just 6 years. She was here day yesterday. and I was working on one laptop, she was working on my other laptop, and she has gone to eBay and selected her own dress, all that for her birthday, and she's asking me for my credit card. Then only I realized, my goodness, what this technology has done.
Yes.
The way that a 60-year-old little child can go to the, I asked, how do you know? And then she said, no, I know. I went and I searched it and she had got the right size, everything. And now she's telling me, I want a credit card to pay it. My God, luckily I have not saved the credit card. Otherwise she would have clicked it and it would have got paid also. Things have changed. Things are changing. Yes. Things are changing. So, I mean, businesses have to respond to these things. If the businesses are not going to respond to these things, businesses are really going down. And that is why we have this technology ring. Environmental risk. This is something new. This was not there 20 years back. But today, the environment is causing a lot of problems for us. The natural disasters are there. The environmentalists are concerned about the environment. The society is concerned about the environment. And we can't ignore the environment today. And if we try to ignore, we will be out of business very soon. Look at the vehicles that is going to come up in I think in April 2015, the fuel cell vehicles are coming up, right? That is no more petrol, no more diesel. It is going to run on nitrogen gas. So things are changing so much in the business world. I'm sure in another 5 years' time, another 10 years' time, people will not have any books to read. No more printed books. Everything will be on the computer. There will not be any bookshops, I would suppose. The things are changing so much because the people are concerned about the environment. They don't want paper. They don't want printed material, that kind of a thing. The culmination of all that is your corporate reputational risk. If you fail in any of those other areas, you will end up with what we call the reputational risk. If you don't comply with the regulations and if you are fined, that is a reputational risk for you. If you don't do business well, you will end up with failure, and that's a reputational risk for you. So businesses will have to be concerned about that one. And another risk is the frauds all the time. Frauds happening top to bottom in every organization. When I say in every organization, in most of the organization. You saw a company like Intr, what happened? The top people cheating. But every day in business, we will see small frauds happening. Big frauds happening. Frauds is a different subject. We will talk about it. And different frauds are happening all over. International risk. Today, the business are going all over globally. Once you go globally, we face different kinds of risks. When we go into another country and try to set up a business, one of the risks we face is another, that is also called political risk, but that is not your own country, another country's regulation, political risk. Then the foreign exchange risk. Foreign exchange risk, regulatory risk, all that can come and have an impact upon you. So the risk, we need to categorize it. Why do we need to categorize it? Because then we can address those risks with expertise, specifically. We can assign responsibility. Otherwise, we will be trying to handle too many things and that may not work it out. So, globalization has brought lot of risk for us because you sell products to a totally outside your country. And if he doesn't pay, you have very little recovery chances. Because whenever you give a call, that fellow will be sleeping, and unless you fly and try to meet him, it will be very difficult. So the risks are becoming increasing, and we need to manage it. So there are certain externally driven risks. I mean, they are the risks that we don't have any say, but that is affecting us. So interest rates, foreign exchange, credit, competition, customer changes, industry changes, customer demand, regulations, culture, environment. Now, all these 10 risks what I have put it up, maybe you will have a short question asking list out all externally driven risks. So they may put some of these things in that one. So now, none of these risks, we are the cause for it. Isn't it? Interest rates, you are not the cause. Foreign exchange, you are not the cause. The customer going bankrupt, you are not the cause. Competition, you are not the cause. Customer changes, you are not the cause. But they are affecting us. And those are externally driven risks. But we can't just wait. We have to anticipate and manage the risk. And take appropriate things. So that is what we have to do it. So all these are externally driven, from totally coming from the outside world. But similarly, we have some of the risks which are we are responsible. Internally driven risk. Internally driven risk. It can ultimately end up with many problems. Liquidity and cash flow. Now, if you have a liquidity problem in your company, it is your responsibility. It is the risk that is driven by you. Probably you have not done a proper cash forecast. Probably you have not done your proper collections, credit collection, and that is a risk. Accounting controls and information. If you don't have a good internal control system, if you don't have good right information, don't blame anyone. That is your risk. You go and recruit a wrong person. You go and recruit a wrong CEO. And that fellow pays hell. And that is your risk. Right? Supply chain management, research and development. You don't do any research. And then suddenly you find that the competitor has overtaken you. It's your risk. Employees, product. Right? You continue to produce the same product without making. Properties. Right? You go and buy the properties at wrong places. You go and buy the wrong machinery. All that is the type of risk which you are responsible, and that can have an impact. But when it is externally driven or internally driven, you need to manage the risk. You need to manage the risk. If you don't manage the risk, you are going to be in different scenario. So customer service, if you are not going to look after your customers well, what will happen? The customers will not walk into you. And that's a risk. And that risk is, don't blame anyone, it is you. Because we have not done our part of the job very well. So risk management. Now I want to talk about risk management. Risk management is basically, it's a question of balancing. Right? You always walk on a tight rope. So it is the question of a balance in the risk. So that is what the risk management is all about. So I have basically what I have done is I have split that risk management definition. So you can see it's a process of understanding. What do you mean by process? Process means it's a continuous thing. Risk management is not something which you and I can say, I know everything. No, it's a process of understanding. Every day we have to understand and manage the risk. So it's not something which we can do it and finish it off. It's every day, every moment thing. Understand, manage the risk. You have to identify the risk that the organization is subject to. And these risks are changing every day. The today's risk may not be the risk tomorrow. Tomorrow's risk may not be the risk day after tomorrow. So it's a continuous process of identifying the risk and managing those risks. Why? What for? To achieve your corporate objectives. If you don't manage the risk, in other words, you are not going to achieve the corporate objective. That is why risk management has become so important. That is why we have one paper in SIMA called risk management altogether. Without risk management, I don't think the business world will now survive. So benefits of risk management.
Yeah.
Right. Benefits of risk management. The benefit number one is any business, the biggest risk that they can have is your cash flow not working according to your plan. And that's the biggest risk. Your profits, even if it is not there, it's all right. But if you don't have cash tomorrow morning to pay your salaries, if you don't have your cash to pay your suppliers on time, if you don't have cash to meet your electricity bill, you are in trouble. So, by managing the risk, the number one advantage you get is your cash flows are becoming more predictable, more certain, more ascertainable. Because any business that tries to run without a cash flow is in crisis. Right? The business today success will depend on how good you are on your cash flow management. Actually, the financial strategy is all about this one. Then, by having risk management, the benefits of risk management, you are going to have well-run systems, good internal control system. All the time you are reviewing the system because it's a process. You are continuously monitoring the system. So no system will go outdated. No system will go obsolete. No system will be, inefficient. Because all the time you are keeping your systems really updated. It can be your petty cash control system. It can be your payment of wages system. It can be your credit control system. It can be your IT system. But because you are identifying the risk of every system, your systems will be 100% super. And because of all those things, your chances of going bankrupt is very minimal. Look at the companies that went bankrupt. The companies went bankrupt because they did not manage their cash flows very well. They did not manage their systems very well. So by having good risk management, these are the benefits. So these are the possible short-term questions. And when you have that kind of organization, you are going to increase the stakeholder confidence. Look at the term I have put. I have not put the shareholder confidence. I put the stakeholder. Who is a stakeholder? Stakeholder is anyone who has an interest in your strategy. So shareholder definitely, but there are many others. Employees, customers, suppliers, bankers, government, everyone. When you have good systems, good risk management systems, they will have lot of confidence on you. And when they have confidence, you can recruit good people. You will like to join a company where they have good systems. You are not going to join a company where they don't have good system, right? So, what about the shareholders? When they believe in the company's systems, what will happen to the share price? What will happen to the share price? Share price will go up, isn't it? Yeah?
Yes.
Share prices will go up. So the confidence of the stakeholder, confidence of the shareholder. So that is what the benefits of risk management. And how do we approach this one?
Hello?
Hello? Yeah, can you hear me, Majed?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me? Hi, hello? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, yeah.
Right, okay, right. I'm talking about the risk approach.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, I can hear you, yes.
Hello?
Hello? Hi, hello? Hello, Majed?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hello?
Right, okay. Can you hear me? Otherwise, I will shift to Skype now. Is it clear now?
Yeah, it's okay now, yeah.
Yeah, okay, right. So we are talking about the risk approach. So board, as a board of directors, you should be focusing not only on negative risk, but also on the positive risk, right? So risk management is not only thinking very negative about all the adverse things. Think about the positive things, and you must try and limit that uncertainty. How do you limit uncertainty? How do you limit uncertainty? The way to limit uncertainty is to get more knowledge, more information.
Yep.
Yeah. Get more knowledge, more information, and that way. So the board should have all the time knowledge and information, and that's the way they can reduce the uncertainty. And they should be focusing not only on negative risk, but on the positive risk also. And look at the speculative risk, the two-way risk, and opportunities to maximize the positive outcome. And when you do that one, what is going to happen is you are going to increase the shareholder value. So the risk management of any organization is dependent on two things: management perceptions of risk and their appetite. What do you mean by that one? The management might have a way of thinking about the risk. You know, some people by nature, they don't want to take risks. Think of one profession that people don't want to take risks. Can you think of one profession? They don't want to take risks, or they are very averse to risk. Can you think of one profession in all what you know?
Accountants?
Yes, you're right. They are the worst fellows.
Doctors, so,
yeah. They are the worst fellows when they come to the taking risk, because you know accountants are trained in such a way, and that is what Sima is trying to change it. They are trained in such a way. We are all the time very, you know, trying to calculate everything and do it. So sometimes when you have too many accountants, sure sign a business will fail, because they are basically, they don't want to. And it's your appetite. Appetite is, you know, your capacity to take risk. How much risk are you willing to take? So basically, your risk management strategy will depend on these things: your appetite and your risk perception. Risk perception. These are the two things we have to decide. So your risk management strategy is very much dependent on your business strategy, right? So the business strategy and the risk management strategy should be interlinked. So that's what I'm putting up on the right hand side. You will see the risk strategy. Risk strategy and the business strategy should be interlinked. You have a business strategy. If you are going to do a very risky business, if you are going to do something totally new, you must have a very good risk strategy also. On the other hand, if you are not thinking of doing anything innovative, you will have a very little risk strategy. So the risk strategy is dependent very much on your risk appetite. But the risk appetite is made up of two things. One is your risk attitude. So as I said, there are many people like accountants who have a negative risk attitude. They are risk adverse people. They are risk averse people. But on the other side of the wicket, we have the risk seekers. Can you think of good risk seekers who are going?
Traders and people working in the stock market.
Yeah, that's right. They're really the risk seekers. They're really the equity investors. They really go behind risk. Salespeople, they really go behind risk, isn't it? They want to sell somehow. So the risk appetite is dependent on two factors. One is your risk attitude, and the other one is your risk capacity. You may be a big risk taker, but you may not have enough money. I want to buy many shares, but I don't have enough money. So my risk capacity will limit my risk appetite. My risk attitude will limit my risk appetite. So the organization will depend, their risk strategy will depend on your risk appetite. Risk appetite is dependent on risk attitude and risk capacity. So all the businesses will take their risk management strategy based on this one. And finally, you have to remember, you can manage all the risk, but still you will have something what we call a residual risk. Not that every risk can be managed. No company can say that, we have managed every risk. It's wrong. There's something called residual risk. Something which is still, we have to live with it. And that's what we call a residual risk. So that's the way we manage the risk. So risk attitude, I want to talk a little bit about the risk attitude. In an organization, you get different kinds of people. Many different kinds of people. And different people will have different risk attitude. So there are 4 viewpoints of risk attitude. So let's say I put it on this picture, 4 fellows. So they are the people who will have different risk attitudes. So 4 viewpoints of risk attitude. Number 1, the fatalist, right? They are the people who think, what's a big idea of managing risk, right? We have no control. The rain is going to happen. The governments are going to put their own legislations. We have no control. So the risk management is useless. Now that is some people who think like that. So they say that, forget about risk management. Let's do what we can do and let God control the balance part of it. Then we get the hierarchies. They are overemphasizing on risk reduction through formal risk management procedure. These are typical bureaucrats. They are all the time thinking about the risk and they want to manage the risk through formal procedures. If they don't have formal procedures, they will not be happy. They can't manage in that kind of a thing. Then we have the individual.
Sorry, Kumar.
Yeah. Sorry, Majed. Yeah.
Sorry. How long is today's lesson for?
It'll be about 1.5 hours. How many minutes have?
Sorry, could we just do it for an hour today? Is that okay?
Sure, no problem. It's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we have another 10 minutes time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. It's all right. You remind me the time. Yeah. I'm okay. I hear the clock. I can manage it. No problem. Right. So we are looking at the hierarchies. The people who will, who are all the time the bureaucrats kind of people. Then we are the individualists. Who are they? They are the sole proprietor kind of a people. They try to control their environment, right? They are real risk takers in a way. They try to control. They don't care too much about what's happening. No, let's go ahead. That's a kind of a people. Then we have the 4th category. They try to share the risk, transfer the risk. They know there's something called a risk, but they don't want to take the risk or they don't want to take the 100% risk. So they try to transfer the risk. So that is what you and I normally we do with insurance covers and all that kind of a thing. Yeah. So this is what we call risk attitude. Now I want to talk about the risk aversion. Basically they focus on the risk level. If it is very high, they will avoid it. They will say, better not do this kind of a thing. Unless they can see a big compensation for the high risk, they will just avoid it. Then the other side is the risk seekers. They want to take the risk. They are looking all the time the risk and the return. Some person comes and says you can get a 30% return, they will go for it. They are looking for risk all the time. So generally the risk averse organizations, remember, even though they are risk averse, it does not mean they are not taking risk. They take risk, but they stop it at a point. They say that's enough. They have a point, and beyond that they will not do. But the risk seekers, they are not worried. They will be going all over, taking all the risk. So you get both these categories again. The risk takers and the risk averse people. So on the same board, you might find both people sitting. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? In the same board of directors, you have one fellow who is a risk taker, who is other fellow who is a risk averse fellow. 2 directors. What do you think?
I think it's good because you have a varied view then.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. You have a balance coming up, isn't it? You have a balance. So that is what the board is all about. Board must have a, later on, our next lesson, we hopefully will be looking at the corporate governance. The board must have a balanced view. So you must have the board that I'm serving in my company. I'm basically a risk averse person. Not that really risk averse, but I don't try to take too much of risk, whereas my managing director is all the time looking to take risk. So by having both of us on the board, there is some kind of a balance. So the days that I'm not at the board meeting, some of my others say, you know, when you are not there, that board is little too risky because that man will take all the risk. So it's good to have both the sides working. And this is what good corporate governance. So I want to discuss something about what we call conformance and performance. So as I said, risk management is basically linked with risk aversion and risk taking. On certain areas, you will avoid risk. On certain areas, you will seek risk. The same board of directors on two different areas, they might be looking in two different ways. Now, let me explain this one. Right, you are going to launch a new product. The same board, right? I'm also in the board, you are also in the board. Both of us, we will agree, let's take a risk and launch the product. But the same board, we are coming against some litigation, right? One of our customers have filed action, or employee has filed action and claiming a big damage. And there, probably the same board of directors may take a risk aversion plan. Let's not go to court. Let's try and settle it outside the court, because that's in the best interest of the company. So what I'm trying to tell you is, it does not matter whether you are the same person. In different situations, you may be a risk avoiding person, you may be a risk seeking person. So the conformance basically focuses on downside risk. So basically the theory here is bad things will happen. Bad things will happen. So to avoid the bad things happening, we must conform with compliances. We must comply with the regulations. We must comply with the laws. So to avoid bad things happening. And that is what we call conformance. That is, you're focusing on all the negative risks. Then the other side is performance. Performance is, your assumption is good things will not happen. Good things will not happen unless you perform. You have a good opportunity, but unless you perform, unless you go to that market and perform, it's not going to happen for you. So that is what we call performance. So the risk management is a bridge between conformance and performance. You must manage the negative risk as well as you must manage the positive risk. How do you manage the positive risk? By performing. How do you manage the negative risk? By conforming. And the risk management is the bridge between these two. So, if you don't have that kind of a scenario, you will have a fellow like this sitting here with all the things together. So, you have to do the conformance and performance balancing. If it is not so, you will have a kind of a fellow like this. So, that is not what the business is looking. Business is looking for both sides of it. Conformance and performance. So, this is very important that we have both these set up in the working. Now, to formulate a risk management strategy. You remember we were discussing the formulation of financial strategy last time in the finance. Now, similarly, we have to formulate a risk management strategy. So, if you don't have a risk management strategy, so risk management strategy should be somewhat consistent with your risk appetite. Not someone should be totally consistent with your risk appetite. If you are a company that is prepared to take high risk, you will have a different risk management strategy. If you are a company that is not prepared to take too much of risk, you probably will have a different risk management strategy. Your strategy mostly will be to avoid many risks. So it all depends on your risk appetite. And your risk management capabilities. You must have a good control over your risk management capabilities. You can give credit to your customers, but you must have a good way to collect money. If you don't have a good control system to collect money, then don't give credit. So because of that, your internal control systems should be reviewed annually. That is very important. And you must ensure that the controls are properly implemented. One thing is to review your controls. Once you review the controls, you might find certain loopholes, certain shortcomings. Then you must see that those controls are properly monitored and re-implemented, I would say. Right. In my own company, I found we were giving credit to our customers 60 days. But when I reviewed the system, I find there are customers who are not paid for 600 days. Now, how come that happened? Right? Your policy says 60 days credit. So, probably what happened was there was no proper reviews and the system has gone completely out of control. So, you have to re-implement the system and say the maximum credit period is 60 days. Not only say, now I have put up a lock on the system. Anything over 60 days, it will come up on your dashboard immediately. So we will know the things are not happening properly. We will know the things are not right. So the control system should be properly implemented. And that should be monitored. The control systems should be properly monitored. Then only your risk management strategy will be very successful. So we are going to stop it here, Majed, today.
Okay. So, sorry, just a quick question. You know, on Friday we're doing F3.
Yeah.
What did you want me to? Did you want me to look at anything?
I'm going to look at F3? I'm going to look at the ratios and analysis. You can just have a quick glance on your F3 study book, chapter 2.
Yeah.
Chapter 2 you can have it. But actually, normally what I did was I was sending the notes early. But now I'm not doing that one because since I'm recording these things, what I saw was the notes and the recording